Hey everybody, it's nutritionist Amy Berger here again from 2itnutrition.com with the next installment on keto without the crazy. Thanks as always for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I hope that you find this stuff helpful. Um, Today's topic is kind of a big one. No pun intended, but it's a big one in the keto world, and that's constipation. It's a very highly talked about issue. Sometimes people are very concerned, they're very worried about constipation when they adopt this kind of diet. And if your nutritionist or your health coach or your doctor is not asking about your bowel movements and about your poop and your bowel habits, when I was in the military, we would call that dereliction of duty. Not dereliction of duty, but dereliction of duty, D-U-T-Y. That's enough with the poop puns for now. I can't promise there won't be more later. But we would call that dereliction of duty because it is a very important thing. And someone that is, someone that you are paying to help you with your health should be asking about your poop. So let's get on with things. If my outfit looks similar to my previous video, the part 2 of ApoE4, it's because I'm recording them back to back. All I did was put my hair up. I'm trying to record a lot of these in advance so I can build up a stockpile of them so I'm never caught with a week or two where I have nothing ready to put on YouTube. I want to do like at least one video a week, if not more, and I've been meaning to but have been failing so far at recording a lot of them in advance. So you might be seeing this outfit a lot. Have notes as per the usual. So let's get into things. When I have a client who says that they're constipated, or I get paperwork back from them and they check off constipation, I always ask them, what do you mean by constipation? Tell me what you mean when you say you're constipated. Because here's the thing, and this might surprise a lot of you. Constipation is not defined by the frequency of your bowel movements. If you don't poop every day, that does not mean that you are constipated. What defines constipation is whether your stools are very hard and dry, they're like little rocks, whether it's painful to pass the stool, if you have difficulty passing the stool, if you have to like strain really hard to pass the stool, that is constipation. So you could have stools like that that are hard and painful and difficult to pass every day. Just because you're going every day doesn't mean you're not constipated. Or you could have a bowel movement every second or third or fourth day, but if it's well formed and it's easy to pass and it's not painful, guess what? You are not constipated. So please, right off the bat here, get it out of your mind that you have to have a bowel movement every day, and that if you don't have a bowel movement every day, you're constipated, because that's not true. I'm going to read you something from the American Society of Colon and Rectal Surgeons. Boy, I bet their Christmas party is a hoot, huh? Quote, "The belief that one must have a bowel movement every day simply is not accurate and can lead to unnecessary concern and even abuse of laxatives. In fact, if one's daily bowel movement is hard, requires great effort to expel, or does not satisfactorily empty, the individual would still be considered to have constipation in spite of having a normal frequency. On the other hand, if one has a movement every third day, but it is not hard, does not require straining, and completely evacuates, then one may very well consider this normal bowel movement in spite of the fact it is not a daily event." So I should clarify one thing that I missed when I was describing constipation is whether or not you feel like your bowel has fully emptied. Not to get gross, but sometimes you'll poop and you feel like it didn't all come out, like there's still some stuff in there. If you have an incomplete movement, that could be constipation. But usually when that happens, at least for me personally, sorry if it's TMI, if I have a bowel movement like that where I feel like something is still up there, it comes out later. Maybe it's only like an hour or two later, and I feel like the colonic motility of me having a bowel movement sort of encourages it to get moving, and the remaining amount of that stool will come out later. It's more about me than you ever wanted to know, so let's move on. So there's a lot of reasons why constipation could happen on a keto diet, but let's talk about something that is not constipation first. Let's talk about the reduced frequency. So many of us are accustomed to having a BM every day, especially men. Like some of the men I know get up and first thing in the morning, like clockwork, it just women seem to have a lot more trouble in the number 2 department than men do. Men can go anytime, anywhere. We women don't like to poop in public. We don't like to poop in work. We'll hold it in all day until we get home where we can do it and nobody's listening. Nobody's going to smell it who comes into the stall afterward. I know all the tricks, ladies. We all do this. It's not just you. So part of the reason you might have less frequent bowel movements on keto is because you're eating a lot less fiber. Now, the thing is, ketogenic and low carb diets are not low fiber by definition. In fact, some people who go on a ketogenic or low carb diet eat more fiber than they did because they weren't eating any vegetables. Maybe they were just eating garbage all the time. So when you start eating spinach and asparagus and zucchini and almonds and hazelnuts and whatever else, cauliflower, you have more fiber. So you might be going more often. But there's a lot of people who go keto and they're eating less fiber. And what is fiber? Fiber is indigestible material, right? It's all the cellulose and the plant cell walls. It's the stuff we don't digest. And so when you do a low carb or ketogenic diet, if you are eating less fiber, there's less indigestible stuff to pass through. So you're having fewer bowel movements because there isn't as much stuff that your body's not absorbing that you need to get rid of. We are much, much more efficient at digesting and fully absorbing protein and fat, meat, poultry, seafood, pork, eggs, dairy, whatever, all that stuff. I mean, barring a lactose intolerance, that's a whole separate issue. Okay, so some people, when they're eating a higher carb diet, they might be eating high fiber cereals and bran muffins and whole wheat bread, lots of whole grain this, whole grain that, brown rice, all of this indigestible material that forms the bulk of the stool. Now, stool is partly made up of just dead bacteria that we need to get rid of. That's not gross. That's the human body. Our colons are loaded with bacteria. So the bulk weight of the stool is this dead bacteria passing through, but it's also all of the indigestible material. And so when you're eating all that bran and all that whole grain, honestly, I think some people have artificially frequent bowel movements. These people that are pooping once a day, 2 or 3 times a day, I kind of think it's probably not such a great idea to be pooping 3 times a day. Why are you pooping so much? Why are you eating so much stuff that your body's not even retaining? What are you eating stuff that just passing through? Why bother? And especially, I think there's a lot of unrecognized, whether it's gluten intolerance or grain intolerance, not overt celiac disease, not Crohn's or colitis, but just sort of intolerance to that fiber and the husks of the grains. I mean, that's what the whole grains are. It's that husk, right? I think it's the germ, or is it the endosperm? I always get confused. I think it's the germ. That's the outer portion that we don't digest. So if you're eating a lot of that, you're going to have to pass a lot more of it out. And guess what? When you go keto and you stop eating the vast majority, if not all of that stuff, you ain't going to have to pass it out. So I don't celebrate the fact that somebody's pooping 4 or 5 times a day or even twice a day. Why? So let's see. Just looking at the notes here. People, you'll hear a lot of vegans claim that meat rots in the colon and that's why meat causes colon cancer. Well, first of all, both of those are patently false. I don't have time to get into the cancer issue. I will maybe link to a very, very educational blog post or series of blog posts by Dr. Georgia Ede, E-D-E. She's written fabulous stuff on the lack of connection between red meat and colon cancer, the total absence of data there. But meat does not rot in the colon. If meat is reaching your colon, please go to a hospital immediately, because meat and animal protein in general should be dispatched in the stomach and the small intestine. We absorb all that protein in the small intestine. It does not reach the colon. What does reach the colon, what's supposed to reach the colon, is all the indigestible fiber, all that cellulose, all the broccoli cell walls, all the leaves that we can't digest, because we are not ruminant animals. We are not cows, we are not sheep, we are not goats, we are not deer. We don't have a 4-chambered stomach in which to ferment and deal with all that cellulose and indigestible material. I will link to a very, very great blog post by somebody, I think it's actually titled, "Meat Does Not Rot in the Colon, What Does? Grains and Beans." You know they call beans the magical fruit, right? Or the musical fruit? Beans, beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. Because the beans, all of that undigestible, fermentable matter, that's what the bacteria in the colon feed upon. And as a byproduct of that bacteria consuming that stuff or fermenting that stuff, it produces gas. And that's the gas that we expel. So let's stop blaming global warming on cow farts. How come nobody talks about human farts? How come nobody talks about all the gas expelled by all these people living on beans and grains? But again, I digress, as I tend to do in my videos and my blog posts. There's another post that I know I keep saying I'll link to post, but it's really great stuff if you like to read. There's a man who had an ostomy bag. He had a surgery where they had to remove part of his intestines. And a lot of people have to undergo these surgeries, and they have these bags where the food sort of, after going through the stomach and whatever part of the intestine they have left, the food is deposited into this bag because they're not able to, have it properly digest through the whole intestinal tract. And you can see what accumulates in this bag, what reaches the colon, what reaches the, the large intestine. It's never meat. They never ever find chunks of steak. They don't find chunks of chicken. They don't find chunks of pork. They find leaves. They find greens. They find corn. They find seeds. They find plant matter that the body is not digesting. All right, I'm getting kind of off track. It's 12 minutes. Let's get back to constipation. So there's a lot of reasons why you could be constipated, and a lot of these remedies are based on these potential reasons. One could be dehydration. You're just not drinking enough water. In that case, more water might help. But I think that's a very, very uncommon cause. It's a very rare thing to be truly dehydrated to the point that your stool is, your body will be reabsorbing as much water as it can through the colon, leaving your stool to be very dry and very hard. I honestly think that that's probably a very, very uncommon cause of constipation. Let's see. So, and a lack of fiber. For constipation, more fiber. You can't poop more fiber. Here's the problem with that. In a lot of people, lack of fiber is not the cause of constipation. And I know this from personal experience that I'll talk about in a couple of minutes, but more fiber does not always help. In fact, more fiber can make things substantially worse, and here's why. If your constipation is caused by something else besides lack of fiber, so stool is sitting in your colon and it's not moving through in a timely manner, that's constipation. Why, if you're in that situation, your colonic motility is already slow, stuff is already sitting there and not passing through, why would you want there to be more of it? That's what fiber does, right? It bulks up the stool. Why would you want there to be even more material accumulating in your colon, making you bloated, making you feel heavy, making you feel uncomfortable? That's the last thing you want. So more fiber, more water, only if you're on an extremely low fiber diet and you think that might be the cause, and only if you're dehydrated. More from the scientific literature. Or exercise, one more point. Sometimes they say exercise, maybe just because they think getting the whole body moving is going to get the colon moving. I really fail to see the connection there, but I'm not willing to say it's wrong. Maybe it does help. Everything helps somebody, right? But here's from the literature. Conventional go-to advice for chronic constipation includes increased water and fiber intake and increased physical activity. And while these may work for some people, what happens when someone already gets enough water and fiber? What if they already exercise? More of the same isn't guaranteed to help. In fact, researchers note, quote, these measures are effective in only a subset of patients. Clinical trial data supporting the effectiveness of such approaches are limited and, in general, do not support their benefit in providing relief of symptoms, particularly when evaluated in patients with chronic constipation. Increasing water intake might be beneficial for the subset of patients who have clear signs of dehydration, but if inadequate fluid intake isn't the problem, then more fluids probably isn't the answer. There is no evidence that constipation can successfully be treated by increasing fluid intake unless there is evidence of dehydration. Then one more paragraph, and I'm going to set this down and just talk. It's going to be me again, but one more paragraph. Bear with me. The same could be said for increasing dietary fiber. Increased fiber intake might help the subset of patients whose constipation is caused by inadequate fiber, but this is only a subset. According to researchers, a diet poor in fiber should not be assumed to be the cause of chronic constipation. Some patients may be helped by a fiber-rich diet, but many patients with more severe constipation get worse symptoms when increasing dietary fiber intake. Mic drop, paper drop. So please, if you have chronic constipation, don't eat more and more and more fiber. You might actually make it worse. Another cause of constipation, whether on keto or not, could be dairy. Unfortunately, as delicious, as yummy as dairy is, in some people it causes constipation. And I don't really know the mechanism why, except that it could just be the calcium. Excessive calcium is constipating. And I think that may be why magnesium helps a lot of people go. Helps them with bowel, and I'll get to that in detail in a minute. There's a reason they recommend magnesium when you're constipated. I think one of the reasons might be correcting the high calcium, or sort of offsetting that calcium. The magnesium helps, reduce the constipating effects of the calcium. So let me make sure I got everything before moving to the next page. Okay. I said that constipation is not defined by the frequency of bowel movements. However, if it's been several days and you haven't passed any stool and you are physically uncomfortable, that's the thing, right? If you feel fine, don't worry about it. If you feel uncomfortable, or if you feel like you want to poop or you've tried to poop and it's not coming out, then maybe you need to intervene. There's a lot of ways to intervene. I guess let's start with magnesium. Why not, right? There's a lot of different forms of magnesium. One of the mechanisms I mentioned, offsetting the calcium. Another thing is that magnesium helps draw water into the stool. So it can make your stool a little more watery, a little softer, probably a little easier to pass. And so the one I like, the one I use is this can you see it? Mag citrate powder. It's from a brand called Designs for Health. I write for Designs for Health, so full disclosure, I'm not an employee. I'm an independent contractor. I do freelance for them, but I know the products inside and out because I write about them on a daily basis. I trust this brand. I went to their headquarters. I actually visited the lab where they test every single batch of every single product they make. I met the lab, personnel. Like, I trust this stuff. That being said, there's a lot of different magnesiums from a lot of different brands, and most of them probably work just fine. I have in my cabinet, I won't get up, I have Natural Calm, C-A-L-M. You can find that at most health food stores or online. It's the same compound. It's magnesium citrate powder. You can put that in hot or cold water. Very, very good for helping you in the bathroom. Let's see. Also, I'm not against conventional laxatives, like whether it's X-Lax or this is the Walgreens drugstore brand. They're all kind of the same. They have Senna-sides. There's Senna tea, S-E-N-N-A. Senna is the plant. It's the leaf that makes you go. Whatever works for you. It's all good. These are the pills, but I've also had You know, I don't know about overseas, but in the US they have these little like chocolate laxatives. They've all worked for me. I'm not opposed to pharmaceutical intervention. If you haven't pooped in a week, make yourself poop any way you can, right? I mean, maybe 5 days is okay if you feel well. I know I said it's not the frequency, but 5 days is a little much, right? Now the thing is, I had when I okay, so something I forgot. I'm like bouncing back and forth. I apologize. It's what I get when I don't actually follow my notes. I just kind of glance at them. I was talking about things that can cause constipation. Now this one applies to whether you're on a ketogenic diet or not. Hypothyroidism. I did a very detailed video on hypothyroidism and that you can find on my channel if you go to the list of videos. But chronic constipation is one of the signs of hypothyroidism. Now, to be clear, just so you don't get the wrong idea, just because you're constipated doesn't mean you have a thyroid problem. But if you have a lot of the other signs and symptoms of hypothyroidism besides the constipation or in addition to the constipation, then you will want to get your thyroid evaluated. But definitely when my hypothyroidism was at its worst, I am not kidding you, my dear viewers, I could easily go 10 days without a bowel movement. Think about that. Every single thing I ate in those 10 days was still inside me. No wonder I was depressed. No wonder I felt like, you know what. I actually had a couple of colonics, or sometimes it's called colonic irrigation, like where you go to this special facility where, you know, ideally they are licensed and certified and all that good stuff. And it's like an enema on steroids. It's like the biggest, most severe enema you ever had. But man, did that clean me out. I'm not saying I recommend it. I'm just saying I know what it's like to go 10 days or even 2 weeks without a bowel movement. It's not a fun thing. I don't recommend it. Okay, we talked about the magnesium. If you want to have some fun and have a nice, loose, easy bowel movement while you're at it on keto, eat a lot of sugar-free chocolate. A lot of maltitol, a lot of xylitol, a lot of mannitol, sorbitol. These are sugar alcohols that will definitely give you the runs if you overconsume them. If you have a little bit, it's no problem, but you'll actually notice if you go to a supermarket or a drugstore where they sell the sugar-free chocolates, on the package, there's usually a warning label that says, warning, excess consumption may have a laxative effect. Oh yeah, it can. I learned that the hard way once, or should I say the soft, easy way, but I overdid some sugar-free chocolate covered peanuts a while back, and I definitely had a very urgent, very intense visit to the bathroom the next day. It didn't hit me right away, it was the next day. Supposedly erythritol does not do that. That's the sugar alcohol used in Swerve, the brand name it's one of the brands in the US. There's plenty of other brands though. Erythritol supposedly doesn't have that. I feel like everybody reacts a little bit differently, but xylitol definitely does. Maltitol, mannitol, and sorbitol do as well. But now, I don't necessarily recommend that because those sugar alcohols also can affect blood sugar and insulin in some people. Again, erythritol and seems to have the least effect on that, and some people will claim it even has no effect. Other ones like the xylitol and the mannitol and maltitol do have a glycemic impact. Not as much as sugar. It's lower than sugar, but it's not nothing. So, you know, maybe not the best way to cure your constipation. Some people, again, your mileage may vary, some people find that over-consuming coconut oil or MCT oil will have them in the bathroom. You even hear this called disaster pants. You may have heard that term online or on, you know, on videos or something, disaster pants. I never experienced that ever, and I have consumed obscene amounts of coconut oil and MCT oil in a sitting, and I never had the laxative effect ever. So I think it doesn't affect everybody the same. And let's see. Some people say that coffee makes them go. Again, not everybody, because I live on coffee and it definitely doesn't make me go any more than usual. If it did, then the whole time I was hypothyroid, I would not have had a constipation problem because I basically have like a coffee IV inserted into my arm. So those are some remedies. You could try drinking more water. You could try eating more fiber. But if you're familiar with the carnivore movement, this growing number of people that are eating literally no plant material whatsoever, no fiber, no spinach, no broccoli, no almonds, no zucchini, no anything, and they still poop. They poop just fine. They tend to not poop as often because they're not consuming any of that indigestible stuff. But, you know, they're still passing out the bacteria, like I said, maybe passing out who knows what else, I don't know. But they still poop. And they're not constipated. The poop is well formed, it's soft, it comes out, it's all good. So I don't think fiber is necessarily the best remedy or even all that good a remedy for constipation. But if you don't eat a lot of fiber and you don't drink a lot of water, maybe try that. I think the magnesium is probably a great way to go. And let's see. I think that's about it. So if you are doing a low carb or ketogenic diet and you're not pooping all that often, don't worry. As long as when you do poop, you're not in pain, you're not struggling or straining, and your stool is well formed, it's not like little hard rocky nuggets like rabbit poop, you're fine. And let's see. I guess that's it. I hope this is helpful. It's a little weird, but it's kind of fun, right? This is the beauty of the human body that we don't talk about as much as we probably should. And you know, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to look at your stool. Don't just drop the kids off and run. Don't just drop a deuce and get off the pot. Take a look, because, you know, if there's a lot of stuff, if there's a lot of visible stuff in your poop, you're not digesting that stuff. Now, you're not eating corn probably on a low carb diet, but back in the day, in your higher carb days, you probably found a whole, fully untouched kernel of corn in your stool every now and then, right? You could see maybe a little piece of leafy green in it here and there. But some things to look out for, you might notice blood in your stool. And I think every now and then that just happens, you know, especially if you're straining. If you are having painful, you know, struggling, straining stools, you're probably going to bleed just passing the stool. So I don't think that's that huge a deal. But if your stool is very, very dark, like black, that's kind of a scary sign. You want to get that looked at. That could indicate upper GI bleeding or stomach bleeding, or, you know, bleeding. They call that occult blood, fecal occult blood, because it's sort of hidden. I'm not trying to scare anybody, just saying, take a look at your poop. It's cool. It comes out of you. Don't just leave it there. Like, it can give you hints and clues about things that are going on in your body. It's not gross. It's just poop. It's stool. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Hope I haven't grossed you out too much, because I have videos coming up on hypoglycemia, neurological health, and what to do with uncooperative doctors. Doctors who are not on board with your awesome low carb or keto diet. Other topics, if you have ideas for topics, please, please, please email me. Don't leave them in the comments, because I can't guarantee that I'll see the comments. I try to check in every now and then, but I don't often check in with all the comments. So if you have a topic you'd really like me to talk about, send me an email at toitnutrition@gmail.com. Remember my PayPal account if you find this stuff helpful. Every minute I spend preparing for these videos, every minute I spend recording is unpaid time. If you'd like to support my work, go to paypal.com and send a contribution. There is no amount too small. You can buy my next cup of coffee, buy my next pack of laxatives. Not that this will last me like years. I hardly ever use them, so maybe don't buy my next pack of laxatives, but buy my next pack of beef, my next pack of pork chops. Much appreciated. Thanks for watching. See you next time.